Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Learning Now Simple, and today I have brought another important topic in UAE SST, which is Al-Falaj. So let us start with the most basic yet the most important point, that is, what exactly is a Falaj? So the Falaj system is a network of underground water channels that was mainly used for irrigation in the Al Ain region in UAE. So let's try to remember that again. It's a network of underground water channels. It ran under the ground, and it was used mainly for irrigation in the Al Ain region in UAE. So Falaj or Aflaj is an Arabic word which means split into parts. So why do we call it a falaj, or why have we given it such a name that it means splitting into parts? It's because this system, the falaj system, evenly divides water between farms, and therefore it is known as falaj. It refers to an underground channel that ensures the supply of water to the crops. So already we can get one main idea in our mind, that is that the basic need for the falaj was for irrigation. So where was it found? So the Falaj existed mainly in the arid zones, where people devised the underground channels to bring water from distant sources to their land. It is very commonly found in UAE and Oman. So UAE and Oman are also arid regions, and the Falaj was mainly found in these hot regions where the water was not found. So people had to rely on the very few sources of water which were found, and mostly these few sources of water were very far from their houses and their irrigation, their farmlands, and that is why they needed a channel to bring this water from distant sources to their land. At the same time, this water should be equally divided among all the farms. So the archaeologists said it was a highly mature capability based on the people's skills in engineering, water exploration, digging, and maintenance. Let's go back to that again. Engineering, that is how it was built. Water exploration, where you find water. Digging, how the channel was dug, and maintenance. We need to maintain it, right? It cannot simply be left like that. It has to be maintained from time to time. So this is actually very true, because the Falat system in those times, you can see this dates back to nearly 1000 BC, that is during the Iron Age time. And this is actually a very, very mature capability based on the tools that were found there. And we all know that we didn't have the modern technology we have now back then. So it was actually a very intelligent and efficient idea that the people had devised, using their skills to make, they have made it a very simple thing, yet it is very efficient and works perfectly. So that is why it is very highly appreciated, and it can be used in the present world even now in the current times also, without any problem, without any complications also. So, which were all the places that it has been found? So, the Iron Age Falages have been found in Alain's Hilly, Bida bin Saud, Jabib, and Al Madam areas. Let's go to that again. Alain's Hilly, Bida bin Saud, Jabib, and Al Madam areas. So, this is how the Falaj looked. So, as of now, I think we all have been hearing the word channel for a long time, and here it is right before us, a water channel that is carrying the water. So now let us come to what was the structure and technology used in the Falaj. So the first point is the Falaj gets its water from underground sources. We have heard before in the definition itself, we found out that it's a set of underground water tunnels. So obviously it gets its water from underground sources like wells or wadis. Wadis means valleys. So it doesn't use any machine to extract water, but it depends on gravity, the gravitational force, to push the water to flow through its tunnels. So as we see, there is no pump, or there is no such thing that is pulling the water out and pushing it out into the tunnels, but it has been designed so that the gravitational force on its own can be pushed, can allow the water to be pushed on its own into the tunnels and flow. And now, because of this mechanism, the gravitational force, this also controls how water is divided fairly and equally among different farms and surrounding areas. Water is constantly streaming in the Falaj all year long, but the fullness of the Falaj depends on the rainy seasons, which in turn determines the fullness of the water sources. So the Falaj taps underground water and brings it to the surface through a long human-made tunnel. The water can be used for drinking and for growing crops. But the main use of the water transported by the Falaj was mainly for irrigation. Where were the Aflaj first found? So, although it was initially thought that the Aflaj first developed in Iran sometime around 700 BCE, many scholars now doubt that they existed in Iran at this early date. In fact, excavations by UAE archaeologists in Alain uncovered several Falaj that date back to 1000 BC. And at the moment, presently, they are the earliest known Falaj in the world. So we know that the earliest known Falaj probably, as per current excavations, exist in UAE. The first Falaj seem to have been invented in UAE as per archaeological excavations and datings. So it is not very surprising that the people in UAE seem to have been the first to make a Falaj because they have been living in this arid region for thousands of years. They knew the place very well. They knew where water was located underground and how the water level changed when rainfall occurred. So these main 3 points actually justify that statement made by the archaeologists. Remember, the archaeologists said that it was a very mature capability based on their engineering skills, etc. Engineering, digging, water exploration, and maintenance. So these 3 points actually satisfies that. So now, during the al-Nar and Wadi Suk periods, they dug wells and were able to draw water to the surface with simple pulley devices. Nar and Wadi Suk periods preceded the Iron Age period, and the Aflaj were introduced in the Iron Age period. So before this, they were basically using wells and using the pulley system to bring water from under the ground to the surface. Now, there was another thing that happened around 1000 BC. So, there was a slight reduction in rainfall in the UAE. Already, the place is very hot. We know that it's a desert region, very arid and hot climate. And on top of this, there was a slight reduction in rainfall. So, you can already imagine how what a pitiable condition the people living there might be. The level of water under the ground probably dropped, and it became more difficult to reach. Rainfall went down, so in what simultaneously the water tables level also goes down because there is no more water seeping underground. So the level of water under the ground dropped and it became more difficult to reach. So at the coastal town of Muwela in Sharjah, I have also made a separate video on Muwela. Please do check it out. You'll be able to get more information about Muwela in that video. So let's come back. At the coastal town of Muwela in Sharjah, people use new types of wells that tap the fresh water that lay above the salty water. So it was a special kind of well. So the fresh water the fresh water would be on the top, and the salty water would lay below, and this fresh water would be used for their purposes. Even these sources would have eventually been affected by declining rainfall. Already we know that the temperatures, because of the temperatures, the water found here is absolutely scarce, and now there's this slight reduction also. So slowly, all the water sources would be affected because all the people are thriving on these very few water sources, and slowly, it will also decrease. The water content will decrease because people are using it because there is no rainfall. The inland springs would have dried up, and in this situation, people needed water from deeper underground and a system to transport it to the surface. So they actually needed something. Let's go back to the words again. They needed water from deeper underground and a system to transport it to the surface. Now, what can be one such system where water can be brought from underground and it can be brought to the surface and used for satisfying the needs of the people? Yes, absolutely right. It's the Falaj system. The Falaj system was the solution. And this was to remain one of the most remarkable features of agriculture and village life throughout the UAE and the Middle East. Now, let us come to another subtopic, that is the parts of the Falaj. The Falaj mainly had three parts: the al Falaj, tunnels, and access shafts. What are they? Al Falaj, tunnels, and access shafts. al Falaj is known as the mother well in Arabic language. It is the major source of water in the system. The water at this point has the highest quality. So this is the water source. That is the water running in the tunnels from the tunnels of the Falaj is coming from this. That is, the water from the al Falaj is being transported to the different places. Then comes the tunnels. So the tunnels deliver a large amount of water from the al Falaj to its destination. The length of the tunnel depends on the type of the terrain, that is the type of the place where the Falaj runs, the amount of water in the mother well, and how far is the final water destination. Access shafts. Access shafts are basically used for purifying the water. Now we know that we are taking the water from underground, so and there are no machines. There were obviously no machines, no modern machines that could be used at those times also, and the water was directly flowing using gravitational force without any modern technology. So we know that there will be some silt and some debris in the water, very little because there was not much pollution that time. But this small amount of debris also needs to be removed, right? So the access shafts would come into picture there because the access shafts were used to for ventilation and to help in the removal of debris. So there is a ring of burnt clay at the shaft mouth, which has two main functions. One is to prevent the destruction of the Falaj if the tunnel collapses, and to prevent flooding of water, prevent flooding water from entering the Falaj. These covered rings also protect water from pollutants and prevent people and animals from falling in the Falaj. So the access, so we can already understand that the ring of burnt clay is a very important part of the access shafts. Now let's move on to another subtopic, that is the types of Falaj. So there are three major types of Falaj: the Dawoodi Falaj, Ghaili Falaj, and Aini Falaj. So the Dawoodi Falaj, as you can see in this picture, it is the first type of Falaj, which is a long underground channel that can be tens of meters deep and can run for several kilometers, which keeps the water constant around the year. Ghaili Falaj is another type, which is usually from 3 to 4 meters or 10 to 13 feet deep and gets its water from ponds and running water. It floods when it rains heavily and dries when it doesn't rain for a long time. Aini Falaj is the third type of Falaj, and it extracts water from springs, and that is why it's known as Aini, which comes from the Arabic word Ain, which means well. The importance of the Aini Falaj depends on the type of water it has. So it can carry hot water, cold water, fresh drinking water, that is the potable water, saline water, or alkaline water, which is mixed with valley water. Now, let us go to a hot question where you have to think a lot. What do you think was the importance of the Falaj? So there are basically four major and the four basic reasons. The Falaj was actually a very efficient system, and its phases are numerous. But these are the four major reasons why it was so important. First is that it was a very sustainable system. Sustainable means something that can be used for a long period of time, which is very assuring and which has no chances of, it can be preserved for the future. It can be used now, it can be preserved for the future, and there is no chance of any problem over the ages. And this is very true about the Falaj. If we see, we can know that the mechanism is very simple. That is gravitational force. It existed then, it will exist now, and it will always exist. It will be existing forever. So that is why this is a very sustainable system, because the water will be streaming all year long because it is using underground water, and it's a very simple system. So there is no complication in between, and it's very easy to maintain also. Now we know that the Falaj were first found in the Middle East areas, and we also know that the Middle East areas have very high temperatures and very less water availability. So it was very efficient system then, and it'll still be of very much use now also, because the underground water can seriously be put into use, and just as it was then back in the olden times, it still can be used to divide equally. That is where we come to the point, fair and efficient, because the tunnels would equally carry the water to different farmlands. So it was actually a very fair distribution. There was no hand picking, or there was no machines involved. The water would flow on its own, and that's why it was very evenly divided. So it was very fair and efficient, and if we put it into use now also, it would be having the same effect. It is a very simple mechanism with very easy maintenance. We know that the mechanism is very simple. There's no machines. Now, if we have some big machines in between, then we would have to regularly keep a check on the machines. If we would regularly have to keep making sure that there is no problem in them. We have to make sure about the water tunnel. There'll be a lot of problems. But because here the mechanism is very simple, it is very easy to maintain. You just have to take care of the debris, take care if the water is meeting any gutters or something like that. Just keep a check on its flow. That's all. It's very easy to maintain. And did you know that several aflaj are being restored, just as how important the Falaj is, and how the people realize the importance then. This importance is also realized by the present government in the Middle Eastern region, especially in UAE. So the government is taking various efforts to revive their traditional method of water dispersal, because the Falaj are very simple yet smart and efficient systems of water distribution. So one example is the Falaj at Wadi Shees was restored recently, that is in 2019 December. So Mr. Thani bin Ahmad Az-Ziyudi, the Minister of Climate Change and Environment, said, the restoration of the Falaj system at Wadi Shees helps preserve the ecological and cultural characteristics of the site, to familiarize current and future generations with the UAE's heritage and traditions, while also improving water supply. This means two basic things. One is that we already know that the Falaj is a very efficient system for water supply. That is the first point. And the second point that he wants to convey is that the Falaj is actually acting as a connection between the past and the present. It is helping the present, that is the present generation, the current generation, to go back and visualize the cultural heritage and the traditions of the UAE people at those times, and get to connect more with the past and learn a lot about their ancestors. Now let us come to the key terms. The major key terms which we already know are evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and transpiration. Evaporation is the process by which water changes state from liquid to gas. Liquid, that is the normal liquid water. Gas, that is water vapor, through the process of heating. Let's try to recall that again. Water changes state from liquid to gas. It is changing state from what? Liquid to gas. Through what process? Through the process of heating. See, as we see in these images, we can see that heat is being applied. Okay. Now here we can see that the water content is decreasing and more of steam is being released. Can you see the molecules and all are vibrating and they are being released? See, the water content is going down and the water vapor is being released because it is changing due to the heat that is applied. Now comes the next term, condensation. It is a process by which water vapor changes state from gas to liquid. First we had liquid to gas, now it's the reverse, gas to liquid. Through the process of what? Cooling. First we had heating, now it's cooling. So condensation is like the entirely opposite process of evaporation. See, we can see condensed droplets on a cool surface, as we see suppose on some bottles or coffee mugs or something like that. Then precipitation. It is when water is deposited from the atmosphere onto the Earth's surface. Now, if we try to recall the hydrological cycle, water evaporates from the ponds and water evaporates from the water sources, and then it goes up. This is, suppose this is a water source. Water evaporates. It goes up by evaporation, goes to the atmosphere. There, all the water droplets collect. Okay, and form clouds. They collect together and they form clouds. So that is condensation, because again it is once it reached here, it was a water vapor. Now when they collect, they are turning into liquid. Now precipitation is the next step, where this liquid water is coming down. So it is when water is deposited from the atmosphere. This is the atmosphere, onto the earth's surface. Now this is the earth's surface, the ground, then again the empty water, water sources. It is again getting the water sources refilled, okay, in the form of rain, fog, hail, snow, and dew. Again, rain, fog, hail, snow, and dew. See, rain, snow, sleet, hail, fog, they are all examples of precipitation. Now is the next term, that is transpiration. This is a very familiar term to all of us. It is a process by which plants absorb water from the soil, draw it up through their stems and leaves, and then release water in the form of water vapor into the atmosphere. Three major things: absorb water from the soil, draw it up through their stems and leaves, and then release water in the form of water vapor into the atmosphere. So drawing water, that is absorbing water, then drawing it through stems and leaves, and then releasing in the form of water vapor. See, in these images, we can see it is being drawn up through the soil, then going up, it is being absorbed from the soil, drawn up through the stems and leaves, and then being released through the stomata into the atmosphere. Now, here are two other important terms which might be a little new to some of us. Aquifer. It is an underground source of water stored in porous rocks and chambers. Porous means the rocks which allow water to pass through, which gets recharged with water when there is infiltration of surface water into the ground after precipitation. Let's go back to that again. It is an underground source of water stored in porous rocks and chambers. So the water is stored between the porous rocks and chambers, and this water, the water content in it, gets recharged with water when the water is getting filtered, when the surface water is getting filtered into the ground after precipitation. So after precipitation, the water has come down, it has reached the soil. Yes, now suppose this is the ground. After precipitation, here's the cloud. After precipitation, the water has reached the soil, and now this surface, now it has become surface water because it is on the, it's lying on the earth's surface. Now when there is infiltration of this water into the ground, into the soil, it is getting deposited here after precipitation. It is filtering through the soil, and it is getting deposited here between the chambers and between the porous rocks. Now let us go to the next term, that is water table. It is a level at which underground water is at a point of saturation. That is, the area below this level is saturated. What do we mean by this? It means that, when we try to dig, suppose this is the surface, when we try to dig here, we keep on digging until we reach a certain point, and below this point there is only water. This point is known as the water table. So below this place, the area is saturated with water. So let us go back to the definition once more. It is the level at which underground water is at a point of saturation. That is, the area below this level is saturated. So see, this is the aquifer. Can you see the chambers and all? And this is the water table. That is, if I start digging from here, I will find the saturated water over here. See, the lake over here is the surface water. But if I keep digging from here, then this is the point where I find the saturated water. So that was it, my friends. That was the chapter Al-Falaj, and it was a very important and yet very interesting and simple chapter in UAE SST. I hope you had fun learning with me. I hope you had learned a lot more from me. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button, and please don't forget to share and subscribe with your friends. Please do keep visiting this channel again for any topics that you want to get cleared, and please feel free to comment, give your suggestions or ask for some topics in the comment sections below. Thank you and have a wonderful day.